After a very long winter, the forest is finally starting to come alive again. Spring has finally sprung, and it's officially time to tap some birch trees to collect some delicious and nutritious birch sap, also known as birch water. Since birch sap can only be harvested at the very beginning of spring, it's one of the very first wild edibles that we're able to harvest here. Birch sap season happens directly after maple sap season and starts to happen when the daytime temperatures are consistently above freezing, usually sitting at about 10 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Unlike maple sap, birch sap requires warmer temperatures in order for the sap to run. The window for collecting birch sap is incredibly short, usually only about 2 to 3 weeks long. If you've noticed that the buds on the trees have opened up, then you've missed your chance. If you wait too long to collect the birch sap, it's going to taste incredibly bitter, but if you collect it within the sweet spot, then it's going to taste like a slightly sweetened water. This is why a lot of people refer to birch sap as birch water. A common way that people use birch sap is to make a birch syrup, very similar to the way you would use maple sap to make maple syrup. The process is essentially the same, the only difference is that you need significantly more birch sap to make birch syrup than maple sap to make maple syrup. The reason why is because birch sap contains significantly less sugar content than maple sap, so when you're making a syrup, the birch syrup does require more water evaporation during processing. To put this into perspective, you would need to collect about 100 to 150 gallons of birch sap in order to make a decent amount of birch syrup, compared to maple syrup where you would only need about 40 to 50 gallons of maple sap in order to make maple syrup. It's for this reason that most people just generally choose to drink the birch sap straight rather than going through the whole hassle of trying to make a syrup. Since birch sap has a water-like consistency and very minimal flavor, it can be enjoyed as a very refreshing beverage. So let's go tap a birch. First, you need to identify a birch tree. They're usually pretty easy to distinguish from other trees due to their peely, papery bark. You can tap any type of birch tree, which include white birch, yellow birch, silver birch, and black birch. The tree should be at least 10 inches in diameter and the leaf buds just beginning to emerge. You'll need a drill, a spile, and a vessel to collect the sap. Since I'm not using a bucket today, I'm also going to use a tube so that the sap easily navigates into my bottle. Before I drill into the tree, I wipe the drill bit and the spile with an alcohol wipe to make sure they're as clean as possible before entering the tree. We want to do our best to make sure that we're not introducing any bacteria inside the tree. Use a drill bit that is only slightly bigger in diameter than your spile. Drill at a slight upward angle and drill about 1.5 to 2 inches into the tree. Drilling at an angle helps the sap flow out better. Place your spile into the drilled hole and gently tap it into place. You can then place your vessel for sap collection. As you can see from my very janky setup, you don't need any fancy equipment to do this. Once you're done collecting sap, make sure to remove your spile so the tree can heal. People are very divided on what's appropriate to do with the drill hole once you remove the spile. Some people say that you should plug the hole once you're done so that the tree doesn't bleed out, and other people say that you should just leave the drill hole open so that the tree can heal naturally. There's also some arguments saying that if you leave the drill hole open, you're leaving the tree susceptible to diseases and bacteria that might be introduced into the wound, and other people say if you plug the hole, you're potentially introducing bacteria from whatever you're sticking into the drill hole, and that could leave the tree susceptible as well. The majority of research states that you should just leave the hole open so that the tree heals naturally on its own, but I do a little bit of both. So while the tree sap is still running, I do plug the hole with a piece of wood that is from the same tree that I tapped. I do clean this piece of wood with an alcohol wipe just to make sure it's as clean as possible when it enters into the tree. A couple weeks later, once the sap stops running, that's when I remove the piece of wood and I allow the tree to heal naturally on its own. Birch sap is very nutrient dense and it's packed with magnesium, calcium, potassium, vitamins A and B. It has over 7 amino acids and it's packed with antioxidants. It also helps to detoxify your liver and your kidneys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.